Shavua Tov, everyone. Shavua Tov. It's been a kind of eventful week in the city of Chicago, anyway. Obviously, it's been an eventful week elsewhere in the world as well, with the war, ceasefire, whatever it is at this moment, moving forward and backwards, as it were. But we're going to take a little step away from the international goings on and focus on the local, or at least United States related stuff right now. Okay. So first off, if you have been watching this YouTube channel that I'm speaking and broadcasting through right now, this week, you will have seen a couple videos. If you've not been keeping up during the week, well, now is your reminder, going forward to do so. So essentially, I had two different experiences dealing with basically the same type of people. Um, the first one was at DePaul. We know a little bit about, if you remember, my protest outside of Olive and Oak Cafe, where SJP of DePaul, or not SJP of DePaul, or whatever they call themselves this week, uh, basically did a mini pogrom and drove Jewish students out of the cafe, physically intimidated them into leaving, chased them out. Um, so that's on top of the violent attack on Jewish students that happened last year, and then the encampments for the previous 2 years for Palestine, and all of the harassment and whatnot that went on around that. So there's been some a lot of issues at DePaul and other colleges, obviously across the country, but um, in any case, the group SJP, Students for Justice in quote unquote Palestine, got banned, or rather sanctioned from operating on the campus of DePaul University, which I was actually amazed at. I applaud DePaul for that little modicum of um, testicular fortitude, but I see it as coming short of what they really could have done. But like remove anybody from the school who is associated with such a group. Say, hey, you have to denounce affiliation with this group, or else you can't keep going here. I mean, this is a group. It's a hate group. Okay. Um, but anyway, they banned the group, and so what they did was they decided to present themselves as Palestinian students facing discrimination, and put on this march, essentially claiming that by banning SJP, the university was discriminating against Palestinian students, which, of course, once again, they tell on themselves. So you're saying that all Palestinian students would support this terror supporting far, left extreme group? Like, okay, well, then it's not really discriminating against Palestinian students. It's against anybody who's supporting this group, and obviously, um, there's a lot of like cornball white people supporting this group too. So, like, are they being discriminated against as Palestinians because they identify with the movement? I mean, anybody can be a Palestinian, apparently, right? Except, an Israeli. But anyway, so they put on this event, and I went and um, protested it. It was a march. They did, I guess, a demonstration. So I did a counter demonstration by following alongside their loudspeaker, uh, and you know countering their messaging. And at times when they were just all cheering and stuff, I would like run the siren, right? So I mean, maybe they in their own circles put this stuff out kind of ahead of time, but honestly, it's a lot of times pretty last minute when I find out about this stuff. On that day of that protest at DePaul, uh, I found out about this. I think that was Wednesday or Tuesday, and I found out about this one going on Thursday at Loyola. So um, after work, I went over to Loyola area. Apparently, they don't have like a demarcation, like a gate or an entrance to the campus that just says like now you're on the campus or anything like that. Apparently, just at some point, the sidewalk becomes Loyola property. I was under the impression that as long as I stayed on the sidewalk, that was the public way, as long as I didn't, enter any of their buildings, right? Or like stand on their grass or something like that. But I didn't do that. But anyway, so the police came. Oh yeah, and it was essentially done incorrectly. Um, they trespassed me, but I never refused to leave. That's normally not the way that it works. They have to give you a chance to exit the property, but the police essentially surrounded me, as you can see in the video. And I'm next to some bushes, so if I were to walk forward, I'd be like stepping into bushes. And if I was walking, or to want to go around to what they've, identified as the public way, um, I would have to like push past them, which obviously would have been, unacceptable. Um, so I find it best, to not fight with the police if not, necessary. So I went ahead and complied and whatever they asked me for my information, which they didn't have to do. Um, you know, and I'm not really required to give my information, but as I said, it's better, in my opinion, to comply now, sue, or whatever, get them in trouble later. But just so if you do want to make a stink about it, if someone's asking you to leave someplace, as long as you're not saying no, I'm not leaving, and you're trying to leave, you haven't committed a crime. Okay. Um, Now they have banned me. Apparently, that's what they claim. Trespassed me from all Loyola property, even though I never refused to leave, and I never entered any of their physical properties. I was just on a sidewalk, which I misunderstood for being, public way when it's apparently a private sidewalk. Um, they'll be hearing from me later about that, but I just wanted to clarify that that's not the way that that's supposed to go. They're supposed to say, "You're not allowed to be in this area. You have to go." And uh, oh, okay. Well, where can I go? Over there. Okay, I'll go over there. And that would it should have been it. But that's not the way it went because, it's Chicago, and yeah, people don't do their jobs right. Uh, so they relegated me to the public way, which was Sheridan Road. And I did want to clarify too. I just put a comment on the screen. If you can go in the comments, that is a blog on our Substack. Um, can you see that link on the screen? It's called "Why I've Been Standing Alone," and to clarify why these protest style ones, these counter demo style ones, work the way they do with just me. But I'll get more into that in a moment. But I wanted to give you a chance to look at that, um, bookmark it, whatever. And let me go forward in the story of Loyola, and then I'll go into what that blog is talking about. So I'm escorted to the public way, as it were, and I begin, doing my bullhorn spiel out there. There is small amount of students just kind of like standing around anyway. Because there's like a food truck across the street type of thing, and there's also the train is a little bit of way down, and there's like a couple bus stops around. So there's little areas where people kind of sit and chill anyway, right? Um, so I go over there and I start in with, my messaging, talking about how, Students for Justice of Palestine is a part of a movement that was started by a man who worked for Hitler, pictured here as you see it, Amina Husseini. I said his name. I talk about the hate crimes from the SJP related people at DePaul and how, they shouldn't be allowed to operate there or here. Um, Talk about the event itself, how it's praising martyrs of the resistance and how that means people who killed Jews, so on and so forth. For the most part, I just got some people looking interesting, like, what is this? This is strange. Uh, but as it got a little bit later, I guess people, more students were getting out and through with classes. And so it ended up with about maybe between 40 to maybe 60 students around me, depending on at which point we're talking about. But we're around that amount. Let's just say 50 people. Um, I guess they thought they would intimidate me or something. Like, oh well, we'll just go stand around her. She'll go away. And I'm like, I told them I'll be here until my batteries run out. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm petty like that. I'm not gonna let a bunch of commies and Islamists have the last word. I will be there until the thing won't even squawk anymore. Okay, I will out, and after that, I'll continue to stand there. Okay, because I stand for what I believe in. I'm not gonna be pressured to walk away. I'm not gonna leave because you asked me. I'm gonna leave because because it's over. That's why I would leave, because it's over. Um, but if you go on this channel which I'm speaking from, you'll see a lot of different videos, and the most recent two, besides for this one, obviously, the most recent two have to deal with that night of resistance and remembrance, which was what they called the SJP event. It was called On This Land, a night of resistance and remembrance. Uh, and it was a celebration of terror. That's what it was. Celebration of neo-Nazi terrorists. And I was over there at Loyola to let people know about that. And the fact that, they are so brainwashed over there, right? They're so brainwashed that they thought that somehow, like, telling me that everybody there disagreed with me made them right, for example. Like, you're supposedly anti-Nazi and anti-racist and all this stuff, right? But the majority doesn't like you. Is the judge of rightness? I I think that's a little bit uh, obvious cognitive dissonance. Um, I don't. I mean, I know that educational facilities and institutions of higher learning can't actually make people smarter. They can just provide the information. But I feel like these guys are at these colleges nowadays are not even providing the information. In fact, they're providing false information to a generation who are already stupider and in cognitive decline compared to previous generations. Now, people will talk about their different theories of why. My theory, obviously, is that children, especially ones going to public school, are subjected to a toxic soup. They're required to have every vaccine that's out there that's available. They are bombarded daily with messaging that is counterintuitive, counter to nature. Um, DEI, CRT, an alphabet soup of mind viruses. Um, we allow children to be exposed to content that is highly inappropriate, in my opinion, on large in the public. Obviously not my children, but when you do have kids and you have to deal with the way that the world is now, you kind of have to, in a sense, warn them, like, look, I don't let you look at some of this stuff that's out there, but there's some really sick stuff, right? Like there's some people who are messed up and you have to be wary of them, and you know it's so much more than stranger danger nowadays, right? But so the public school system is primarily where we end up with most of these college kids from, right? Homeschool kids tend to go to like more specialized things. I mean, they tend to have more specialized studies, and they don't tend to be uh, in these kind of like, you know, main tracks of college where these kids don't even know what they're studying yet or what they're doing with their lives or anything like that. Um, these students that I've been seeing, as of late, uh, they really have a trouble understanding that just because a bunch of people say something, that doesn't make it correct. Their sources are people that call themselves Palestinians. By definition, a Palestinian is somebody who didn't want to become an Israeli, meaning I didn't want to live by the Jews, right? There's no Palestinian ethnicity, it's a political identity. You're saying, by saying I'm a Palestinian, that's like saying I'm a neo-Nazi, I'm a fucking national Bolshevist, I'm a anarchist. It's like you're saying a political name of something, right? Palestinianism is not, uh, you know, a religion. I mean, they're for the most part Muslims. There's a few Christians down there, but for the most part they're Muslims. They're not Jews, but some of them are Christians, but most of them are Islamist Muslims, right? So they don't have a separate Palestinian religion. They don't have a separate Palestinian language. They speak Arabic. And for the most part, they're Arabs. They have white people among them, and black people that live in some very bad slave-like conditions there. But for the most part, they're Arabs, right? So Palestinianism is a political identity, and these people are associating with it, not understanding that they're basically saying something like, hey, I support the neo-Nazis. That's what you sound like. That's what you look like. To people who are not idiots, to people who are older than, 30 years old maybe, or older than 25 at least, realize that it wasn't so long ago that it was accepted and understood that wanting to violently wipe out millions of Jews is very similar to a Nazi, if not completely being a Nazi. Okay, and furthermore, the PA, the Hamas, all of their systems are essentially just overly religious National Socialism. So not only are they Nazis in the sense of hating Jews and wanting to kill the Jews, but economically they're also Nazis. Policy-wise, the other 25, the other 24 out of 25 points in National Socialism, besides for hating the Jew, they're pretty much on all of those as well. They don't just dovetail with Nazis and like how they try to do the MAGA people. Like they said, well, you guys dovetail with Nazis because they're nationalist and you're also nationalist, and it's just like one thing that could apply to anything, right? No, these people love Hitler. All right, you're out of your head if you're thinking that somebody in the Arabic world of Palestinianism, we're not talking about what they tell the white girls, but they like Hitler. All right, they think he was a good guy. Um, they're not uncomfortable with talking about that in their language. They understand that it's problematic in the West, though. So they have to kind of ease you into it. And by the end of the pipeline, yeah, you're kind of accepting of Hitler because they've brainwashed you and groomed you to the point where more and more bizarre thoughts become acceptable. And that's what happens with these people. It's grooming. It's just like child predators. In fact, these people, they are child predators. I mean, a lot of these people, they start advertising this stuff to school age kids, right? I mean, they're even now having, little things for Palestine for like small elementary school kids now, right? So they're grooming these people. They're grooming them in a way that first they give them like a gateway drug. Okay, they say, hey, racism is bad. They meet them where they're at. Okay, yeah, I agree. Racism is bad. My dad's racist, or these cops are racist, or my friend experienced racism, or I just want to look like I care about something because I'm white and privileged, and I want to pretend virtue signal like something ever mattered, to me. So that's where they're at, right? So they start with racism is bad. Obviously, racism is bad. No shit. So they overlap and dovetail. Okay, well, also, let me tell you, capitalism is bad. Well, okay, so they get them a little bit deeper into the left wing thing. And more, each stage, they groom them further to reject their normal lives, which so soon will become their former lives, right? They radicalize them by each increment, pushing it a little bit further, First you start off and you're like, oh, well, right, racism is bad, capitalism is weird, the system, the cops are racist. You get into the critical race theory, DEI, all that stuff, right? And then they start talking about, well, Palestine. What's Palestine, right? So they start telling them, well, there's they're brown people and they're being, oppressed by the white Israelis. Well, what are Israelis? Well, some of them are like the Jews from World War II, but they are really angry about World War II and the Holocaust, so now they're taking it out and doing the same thing. This is the fucking thing that they did. They actually get them to believe this shit. They do. They get them to believe this nonsense that we are so like pissed off about the Holocaust that we're going to do it to everybody else now. You know how ridiculous that sounds? First of all, we have Jewish values, okay? Part of the reason why the Holocaust was so traumatic for us was because it's so against our value system to treat people like that. If we were hardened, evil fucking brigands as a people, then yeah, we would have already not really cared that much. I mean, like, Holocaust did us, oh well, whatever. We Holocaust them before. Like it would have been like that. But no, it goes against intrinsic Jewish values to do something even similar to a Holocaust, and that is why it was extra traumatic beyond the physical extermination of the people. It was the mental sickness and the spiritual darkness attached to it, okay? we're not spiritually dark and mentally sick like that. We may be mentally a little bit, as a people, neurotic, but I mean, we're not dark and sick on the whole like that. It's rare that you're going to find a Jewish serial killer or something like that. Okay, it's rare. We're not raised like that. We're generally speaking, even secular Jews have family values. Okay. Um. Now back to the students and everything. So they're being groomed, right? By the end of the train track, they don't realize that they're speeding right into the Hitler was a good guy station. Okay. At this point, they've settled in. They took their coat off. This train is comfortable. They're making friends on this train. They're not even paying attention where it's going anymore. Okay. And we need to somehow encourage some of them to get off the Palestine train before it gets to the Hitler's a good guy station. But a lot of them are just going to step out and that's where they're at before they realize it. And you'll see that if you watch these videos from Loyola and DePaul from this week. But now I want to talk about what's in the corner there, right? Why I've been standing alone. You can go and read that article. It's on the blog. It's pretty good, in my opinion. I mean, of course, I wrote it, so of course I think it's good. But I think I make the point, is what I'm saying, that look, we're not doing something that needs 10 million people. Okay, we're not doing, not yet anyway. We're not doing anything. It's not a war on the American streets yet. It's a fight to an extent, yes, but it's not like an actual war. Okay. And what I mean by that is there are points in time when, people will have to act like it's a war because it is, if actual, pogroms start happening in your town, that's like a war, right? That's like a physical attack, and you're going to have to get your gang up, go out there and help people, fight for other people's lives, including your own, yada, yada, yada. Okay. When we're talking about political stuff, though, political demonstrations, counter demonstrations, so on and so forth. Those have been being done with one person by design for a reason. Because, first of all, the optic is better because you see that these people, these pro-Palestine people, they will gang up on a single woman, right? It goes out of their head anything about, believe women, elevate black women's voices, any of that shit. Okay, all of that, their other social justice training goes out of the window when it comes to Palestine, right? And they want to be Palestine, Palestine, Palestine. They don't care about the other stuff anymore, all right? And therefore, how does it look, all right? When a bunch, how many people is that? 60 people, all ganging up on me. Now, of course, there was a handful of women among them, but majority male, right? Ganging up on one person. Of course, I'm going to stand my ground because I'm me. Okay, somebody else maybe might have been intimidated and been like, oh, I'm leaving, whatever. But I'm like, whatever. I'll fight all 60 of you. You don't touch me. Okay. But if you want to make the point, you can't be the bully. Their messaging is that the Jew is the bully right now, that we're the Nazis, that we are like some powerful thing that is killing and all this blood libel shit that they say, right? It flips the script when we show that a single Jew will trigger all of them to gang up on somebody and act like savages. And then I get it all on footage of them acting like savages, right? If I was to go there like 70s, JDL style, bring everybody out here, hand up all the helmets and everything, what would that prove in this political atmosphere? It would prove, yeah, that we can kick your ass and that we can intimidate you. Wow. That's what they want you to believe. That's what they want people to think. We're just enforcing their stupid viewpoint. We do it the other way. We call out their Nazi shit with one person, and then other actions which require more individuals or, high danger situations where it's like actually might escalate into a war. Like this is just some douchebags at Loyola, you know what I'm saying? But if this was like, a bigger thing where it was actually they were like, Antifa violent protesters or at a thing, okay, I can see that calling for a more, group militant thing. Yeah, and that's what we've done in the past. We've gone out with the group. Of course, the group is never gigantic. Because even when we went the last time we went to May Day, we had like 10 people, 10 people, but all 30,000 of them got triggered. That we were not afraid of their big group, and it's always about that because it's David and Goliath. We are David, David Hamelech, right? We are David. We are supposed to be the one that they think is not going to do shit, and we come out and surprise everybody and beat that ass. All right. We can't just look like the bullies that, well, we're just going to gang up and get a bunch of grown ass men to come and intimidate some college girls and college boys and stuff. It's not going to work that way. Maybe if I had, more of a younger contingent, and that would be cool if we build up that contingent and that demographic in JDL. But realistically, it's a bunch of grown ass people. We're not going to fucking all gang up on some kids. It's going to look terrible. And it's going to get the type of attention where law enforcement will try and stop your organization because you're going around and intimidating people. No, I'm not. I'm making a point. The point of the protest is to make the point. Not to intimidate some fucking college kids who don't even live in my city for real. They're just here for college right now. They're going to go home and be scared in 5,000 miles away someplace or something. It doesn't. It's pointless to do it that way. You go out there ready to rock if they are going to get violent. But I would like to encourage people that you don't need a gang. One person can go out there. If you have the brain to say the message right, that's all that matters. And that you can stand your ground. Obviously, if you're total pussy, having the brain is great. But if you're not going to actually use it to say the stuff, it's got to be pointless. But get the messaging out there. Have it on video. Have it, this is history, all right, that we're making and recording here. These people's emotions for the moment, it is what it is, right? And look at how many people nowadays look back and go, man, I was into some stupid stuff when I was a kid. Well, this is the stupid stuff now. And yeah, and they're like, well, it's not just stupid stuff, it's Nazi stuff. Well, in the 80s, Nazi stuff, actual Nazi stuff with swastikas was popular. That was hot for a minute. Kids were shaving up and being boneheads and stuff and thinking that, white power and Hitler was cool. And that was a fucking trend for a while. You have to make them look lame, make them look like assholes. Be like, yeah, no, dude, this guy's never getting laid. I mean, like, they are lame. They are uncool. They are losers. Okay, so that's from the secular perspective. That's all people need to know. And then from the religious perspective, they're evil. Okay, they want death and destruction. They make excuses and pardons for some of the worst demonic fucking behavior you could think of. So, yeah, like, this will go away. But we have to make it go away. It's not just going to go away on its own. Like, it's not like, oh, if you ignore it, it'll go away, right? We need to do things, all right, to make it go away. We need to let everybody know, hey, Jews can see you, all right? We can see your Nazi bullshit. And anybody who's a Jew or a friend of the Jews is going to have an ultimatum basically put before them, not by us, but by the Palestine side. Because those people don't want to be friends with anybody who's friends with the so-called Zionists. And most people are not so crazy that they're going to get into the anti-Zionist thing without the long grooming period, right? So they come cold and they're almost at the end of the pipeline and they're trying to bring somebody in, and this is where we win, right? We expose the end of the pipeline people to the people that they're trying to bring in cold. All right. So when, like, you basically make these Palestine people look like they're just like crazy flashers, like they're opening their coat and, all their junk is hanging out and it's a bunch of fucking got swastika tattoos all over it, like that's what we need to make them like shocking and kind of disgusting to people, because that's what they are, but people don't realize that, right? So that's why I try to go and trigger them, because they act like savages. They act disgusting. One guy the other day, or last couple weeks ago or whatever, downtown, he was thought it was funny to do a Sieg Heil Hitler thing. Okay, then we got another guy who's raising his hand to speak because they were students, and I want they need to raise their hands so they don't all speak at once. And the guy says, "Oh, you're putting your hand up too high," like you're joking, like it looked like a Heil Hitler. And then he goes, "Oh, support that shit though." Like, these are the type of people that you're sending your kids to college with, first of all. But these are the type of people who are in this Palestine movement, and you just got to show the end of the pipeline people to the people who they're trying to bring into the pipeline. I told those people, you're not going to see eye to eye with me. I know your guys are already pro-Palestine. I'm here to explain to people who don't already know what this movement is. It's just like these people are already too far gone. They need to be de-radicalized in a different way. Like have some kind of reprogramming class and shit. They need to sit like the end of Clockwork Orange with their eyelids held open and shown some footage of real shit. Maybe watch October 7th footage. But these people are like in a dark place because the group thing is so strong that they believe that they're like being anti-racist, they're being anti-Nazi when they're using Nazi tactics and majoritarian excuses. You know, these are your talking points. Majoritarianism. Well, all of us, everybody in the world is against Zionism right now. Well, everybody in the world was against gays a long time ago. Should we execute them all? Right? Like this idea that right becomes wrong and wrong becomes right based on how many people like it or dislike it is one of the sad side effects of the democratic system, frankly, because we've taught people, oh, Democrats is an acceptable party to have. How is it acceptable to have a Democratic Party? What is Democratia? It's ruled by the mob of people. That's saying however many people we can get together to be more than your people, and that is what makes the rule of law? No. That's why I cringe every time one of these Democrats gets on and talks about threats to our democracy. We don't have a democracy in the United States, okay? We have a constitutional republic built on the Constitution, which is an immutable set of laws, okay? These are not just some laws, they are the law of the land. The Constitution supersedes any other law in the United States, okay? So when we talk about repeatedly beating into the heads of the children that this is somehow a democracy, this is how we allow this evil to get in here. How we allow for Palestine and Nazism and every other dark side of the human soul to rear its ugly head because the ultra social, or also known as eusocial effect here, is that people will do something in a group that they will not do individually. That's the other reason why I stand alone sometimes, to make the point that I will do this individually. I will. I'm not playing some game where I'm following a group. I'm not just trying to stand in a crowd. I'm about this shit. If you notice, if you watch the video from Loyola at the end when they start to walk off before the guy comes and yells about slaughtering the Jews, the one kid who thought he was really something to stand real close to me and stuff, he sheepishly walks off because the group walked off. First, he was going to stay there for a second, but then he was like, I don't know. If I stay here by myself, this woman might beat my ass, or I don't know what would happen. But he sheepishly turned his head and went off with the group because that was what he was doing in the first place. He was going with the group, and he was trying to look cool to the group by kind of acting like he thought he might be intimidating me. And like I said, he think he's trying to do something. You know, I'm ignoring whatever he's trying to do. But the point is that they think that the group is more important than the rule. And as Jews, we should know that that's not the case, right? The majority of the world doesn't follow the Torah, doesn't make it wrong, okay? The majority of the world doesn't, you know, I mean, for let's just go back not too far in history, all right? The majority of the world were not washing their hands before eating. Is that wrong or right? Because it was the majority. Obviously, it was wrong, but the majority was doing it, right? As they started to understand germ theory and all these different things, they, oh yeah, the Jews were, I guess, right about you should wash your hands. Up until then, they were giving people sepsis, doing surgeries without washing hands, cooking food without washing hands, and acting like we were weird. We were strange. Jews are strange. Why they always washing their hands? They're uppity. They think they're better than us. They're washing their hands because they think that we're dirty, you know. And it's always some excuse. of why we're not like them. The reason we're not like them is because the Torah. They could choose to be like us if they wanted to, like they convert or at least follow the Noahide laws, right? But they choose not to, okay? And that choice, they're acting like it's like a race, And we're against their race of people who choose not to adopt positive values, like that's a race or something, like assholes is a race now, come on. But it doesn't matter what the Israeli government does. It doesn't matter what the United States government does with all these war things and all this stuff, because in reality, none of these idiots will know what they actually did anyway. Let me repeat that. It doesn't matter what any of these governments do, because none of these idiots will know what they actually did. They will know what they are told. They will know what is parroted down to them on the mass email from, PSL or SSP or the CCP or whoever is controlling that particular person's mind. That all of them have the same messaging, and it will all go out at the same time, and they'll tell you that the Israelis did this week. No burden of proof. Well, I read it in blankety blank, People's World. I read it in Socialist Newsletter. It's true. They believe it based on how much they trust the source, not on any verification of the information. And that source trusting is a real problem, because it can be abused, obviously. If you constantly post factual information, truth, and you build a trust among following, and then all of a sudden interject some straight up bullshit, people are going to be like, well, I don't think it's bullshit. This guy's generally on point, Like, for example, that's how Stu Peters got where he was at. He was doing like normal kind of like anti-vax, MAGA kind of adjacent stuff, and he was reporting on real things that were happening. Like people getting fired for not taking vaccines, and people were coming to him with tips and all this stuff, and then boom, he's got that trust. So let's flip it to talk shit about the Jews, and they'll never have to verify anything this nigga says about the Jews ever again. Wow, how fucking convenient. How convenient, right? So, again, grooming. The entire Islamist pro-Palestine movement is based off of grooming. They tell people something believable, and they get them more and more used to things that normally people would find shocking. But once you've been groomed into that mindset, you don't realize that a normal brain would view this as shocking. You're out of that realm of normality and into this extreme zone where anything is acceptable, because, as they say, without God, anything is permitted, right? And these people are far away from the message of God and deep into the message of evil. And more and more, this is how terrorists are made. This is how any type of radicalization occurs, is through grooming, right? They take them and they put them in this echo chamber. Everybody around you thinks this way. Oh, this is that. Yeah. We could pass around a picture of a red square and tell everyone it was green, and we'll build up a big story about how it's a conspiracy that people telling us that this is red. They just don't know what green really is. And you could get people to believe this. If you fill it up with enough people reinforcing the belief that red is green, they will believe it. They'll do it and they'll fall for it and they'll just think that everybody else just isn't aware yet. Some of them may take it upon themselves to missionize and go out and make everyone aware. But that's what's going on, all right? These people are clearly have been groomed online and in person. They get surrounded by, teachers who approve of this behavior, who approve of expressing support for some, dastardly people. And that's I mean that's where we're at. We have a bunch of groomed psychopaths ready to be terrorists at once they get to the end of the pipeline. But it's hard to tell sometimes at what point of the pipeline somebody is right away. Obviously, Ibrahim with the screwy eyeball yelling about kill the Jews. He started off at the end of the pipeline. Okay, obviously he's gone. We know where he is. But some of these like college type kids, we don't know for sure. We're like, how far are they into it? How serious are they about it? And that's kind of what I'm interested in at this point. Like how serious are these guys about this Palestine stuff? Or are they just kind of chiming in with some chants? Like I started chanting, they started chanting along with me for a second. They got confused. That's how they got involved in Palestine. They want to chant things they don't understand. It's just like going to a rock concert for them, but now it's a protest because there's no rock concerts in Sharia, right? They don't realize that yet, but they're replacing that. That's something else I want to talk about as well. Actually, it's a perfect segue. Let me bring this up. The silence of Sharia and communism. I've mentioned this before a little bit, but we need to keep music, culture, theater, singing, dancing, clubs, all of that stuff alive with music and freedom, because increasingly, like I just saw an event at a Chicago venue that normally has bands and DJs having some political events, speaking things where people come in and talk about organizing and all this type of shit. And I'm like, they're already doing it. They're changing over from having music into having, incendiary speeches only. Like it's turned into third world quicker than people want to realize. Much quicker, much quicker. It's turning into a third world in this country, and especially in places, sanctuary cities like Chicago and so forth. They allow, scofflaw attitudes, and then on top of that, they make ridiculous laws that regular law-abiding citizens either can't or don't want to comply with. So you get a general culture of rejection of law that creates lawlessness. That creates an atmosphere for evil. That creates where people want to do bad things and they don't care as much about it because the consequences are no longer there. It's sad. In many such cases, sad, right? But I mean, realistically, the brainwash can be undone as long as we continue to expose the end of the pipeline people. You know? So, I mean, if you would help me in doing that, but when I talk about the end of the pipeline people, I don't just mean show, October 7th stuff. They don't just show, well, because they'll always make the excuse, well, they're, hurt people hurt people. They'll play that bullshit with you. Well, yes, the Palestinian people over there, the Gaza people there, reactions are extreme, but you have to understand they're under such duress that they just go mental and you know, they were hurt so bad that they're going to hurt other people. Like this bullshit, right? Okay, first of all, hurt people, hurt people. That's not an excuse. That's an enablement of the cycle of abuse. So stop saying that shit for anything, first of all. But secondly, let's think about this. When you're talking about hurt people hurting people, normally you stop them. The idea is to don't let them continue to hurt people. Like you can't just say, well, they hurt people. They just let them go. No. What happens is that we need to not let them get to the point of hurting people. Okay, and we need to expose them while they're still in the pipeline on this side here. Let's not get into what they think about something that happened to some Palestine village that's in their imagination. Okay, let's stick with it over here. We're in the United States. Okay, let's stick with the fact that people in their movement in the United States are extremists, crazy, and nobody hurt them. Okay, it's the viewpoint, it's the ideology is the problem. Nobody hurt Nick Fuentes. Nobody hurt Sneeko. Okay, nobody hurt David Duke. Let's highlight these overlaps and forget about telling them, well, so and so October 7th. They don't understand it. They believe it's fake. It's not effective. You tell them now, this guy that you're around now is a Nazi. He does hate crimes. You're today siding with people in America who are not being oppressed by Israeli supposed, apartheid or whatever, that just want to fucking hurt Jews. Make this clear. Like, stop trying to translate and communicate a foreign conflict to local morons. Tell them what is real around them that they can see. Like I said, these people did a hate crime in your city. I'm not sitting there talking about October 7th. One guy mentioned something about genocide, and I said, oh yeah, well, thank you for pointing out that October 7th was an attempt at genocide. But yeah, it's not the thing. And also to stop laying out our fucking trauma for these monkeys. They like to see that you're upset about something. They like to see that you crying about somebody died and an Israeli. They love the Jewish tears. No, you tell them, you guys look bad because you're fucking supporting a bunch of people who are racist trash, and I'm fucking exposing you. This is not about me feeling bad about October 7th. If I want to grieve about that, I do that in private. That's not for fucking tears for these fucking demons. Understand that. They don't care about something that happened in Israel. They don't care because they'll always just give you some excuse about what they believe in is that the Palestinians are being so hurt that they're freaking out and going crazy. That's the fucking excuse. All right, well, what's the excuse for fucking assholes in America that are just neo-Nazis? Nobody's oppressing them. Nobody's doing shit to them. Stop fucking gaslighting. Just stop. Like, they need to stop gaslighting. I mean, everything they're talking about is fake. You can argue about Palestine and Gaza and all fucking day long. They don't care. because they don't even understand what you mean. They truly do not even understand what you're talking about. They look at you like, okay, boomer. Really, they look at you like, okay, boomer, even if you're not anywhere near the age of a boomer, you know? And that's because you're talking about something from what they consider like the government's viewpoint. They view like, oh, Israel and any, you know, the military, any of these different things. Well, you know, that's like the army told them, you know, blah blah blah. Like they have a fucking warped view, you know. So in order to unwarp it and to ungroom, you have to take backward steps from what the radicalization groomers did and back them up. Okay, you claim this, you're good for this. Let's back up to where you got into this. Where did you meet this movement at racism is bad? Well, let's back this up to show you that this movement is racist and you made a wrong step in going towards the Palestine movement if you were trying to be against racism, because it's a fucking literally racist movement. And that's being overlooked. And that's why I was saying in a recent blog post that we need to be reclaiming anti-racism. We need to be not falling for or accepting these things that they say. They're lying and saying that we're the racist ones when they're the racists. It's a gaslight. It's just transference, projection, whatever you want to call it. And I know our side is really not enough focusing on that. Like, we're too much on this. We're damaged by October 7th. We're damaged by the Holocaust. They don't care. They want you to be hurt. They want you to be feeling bad, and they want to see your tears, and they want all this stuff, you know? I've just put another blog post. It's Reclaiming Anti-Racism in the Streets, that is on the Substack blog. Go ahead in there and read that. It's a pretty good article, in my opinion. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but it gives a little bit of history, like, you know, with the Baldies and the ARA, stuff like that, into Sharp, history, and how we kind of like helped to foment this anti-racist movement, and then kind of like floated away and let them make us into the white people and the white oppressors, because other people snuck in, and under this mantle of anti-racism, they turned all the anti-racists against the Jews. You know? And we can't let that happen. That's nonsense. Okay? Their idea that the Jew is the white oppressor, right? They're racializing the Jew. They're saying the Jew is white. We know the Jew is not a race. It's a tribal affiliation. People can convert. We have Ethiopian Jews, Chinese Jews, Korean Jews, Yemeni Jews, from all over the country. I mean, all over the planet, rather. And to suggest that Zionism is inherently racist is inherently racist, because it defines the Jew as a race. Anybody can become Jewish if they're not evil or psychotic. I mean, Really? Is it that hard? Are those too big of requirements to not be evil or psychotic? Are we being too exclusionary by by not welcoming evil psychotic people? Because I guess in the Islamic world they welcome evil and psychotic people. Um, so I guess we're uppity. We're we're snooty for not wanting evil psychopaths to join our tribe. I guess it's wild, right? It's wild, absolutely wild. But it happens because Jews were doing not the Jewish stuff. There's another video you could watch. It's called "The Jew and the Survival of the System," and we've actually posted a blog of that too. I don't have a link for the blog of it right now, but essentially, it's voiced by Tony Kosunik, and essentially, it's explaining that humanity is like a electrical network, right? We're thinking network science here, okay? Society, humanity, network science. Jews are the hubs, and everyone else, the Gentiles of the world, are the nodes, the vast network of nodes. Obviously, nodes highly outnumber the hubs, right? But the hubs, even though they're smaller in number, are essential for the function of the entire network. Without the hubs, the nodes would not receive signals, right? Are you still with me here? Okay, so if we're the hubs and they're the nodes, we need to be sending out the right signals if we want the nodes to act right, to fulfill their proper functions and jobs, right? If we send out the wrong signals to the nodes, then they malfunction. So, unfortunately, the nodes are malfunctioning right now because we hubs have been sending out the wrong information largely from a lot of various hubs have been sending out a lot of wrong commands, wrong information, and therefore the nodes are going haywire. What does this mean? Sounds like a bunch of nonsense. No. When the Jew is not doing our job in the world, the non-Jew gets out of whack. The Gentiles go crazy, or as they say, the natives are getting restless. Okay? The Gentiles of the world, whether they want to admit it or not, rely on us. And we also rely on them because without the network of the nodes, what would be the function of the hubs? Nothing. If there's no nodes, what does a hub do? Just some bunch of hubs sit around together only? That's not a network. It's not going to function. Okay? So there needs to be both hubs and nodes. And yes, nodes will outnumber hubs every time. So we need to be doing our right stuff as Jews. I'm not just saying become super religious or strict. I'm not Hasidic, I'm heavily influenced by a lot of Hasidic thought. And I try to be religiously observant as much as possible. But we all fall short, right? I'm not talking about just being the perfect religious Jew, like you did everything the Torah said exactly. Now everything is right in the world. Like, that would be great, but everybody would have to be doing exactly that for everything to be right in the world. What I mean is adopt these Jewish values, try and do more try, at least try, right? At least try and do more religiously, but also try and communicate as a proper hub should communicate with the nodes. Okay? What that sounds like something. Ki mitzion tetse Torah. Out from Zion comes the Torah, right? We need to emanate these Torah values, these Jewish values, out into the world more. And when we're busy doing, stupid bullshit and, the type of stuff, the type of stuff I'm talking about, okay? With the type of stuff that too many Jews were occupying themselves with before October 7th, okay? And you know exactly what I'm talking about. If we switch to putting out the right messages as hubs, then the nodes will get back into their normal function. But right now, they're shooting sparks off because of so many years of being fed the wrong information. So, what does this mean? Do I mean like let's go out and do outreach to every Gentile? No, I don't mean that. What I mean is when the end of the pipeline people of our enemies show themselves, though, we should expose them, and then those who would care will see and act accordingly. So, but yeah, it's just really interesting how students think they know. That's why you're in school, buddy, because you don't know. That's why you're going to some place paying thousands of dollars to have some weirdos fill your brain with their ideas. That's why you're at college, because you don't know. You don't know. So, college kids, please humble yourselves a little bit, okay? You're a student, meaning you're still learning. You've got a lot to learn. So please, learn. Okay? Learn. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I think we've talked enough about this topic. But please go to the JDL.US, and if you are Jewish, take advantage of our CCL class discounts affiliate program we have there. And if you feel that you can help out, join JDL. As I was saying recently, we are looking for more people with more cultural influence. We're not so much in the realm of the, just street soldiers type of thing like that. We're looking for people to help raise the profile of the Jew, and also instructors. We need more, like firearms instructors, things like that, because we also want to raise the preparedness of the Jew. So, with all that in mind, we're going to go ahead and say goodnight, I believe. And please subscribe on the Substack. And if you'd like to show your support even more, please get a paid subscription. And then you can comment on the Substack and many other things. Okay. Have a good evening, and I hope everyone had a wonderful Pesach. And keep an eye out for a new video incoming from Rabbi Nachum Shifrin, probably tomorrow, maybe the next day. Okay. Good night, folks.